All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Win.Pod.Repeat, where we're also on video. So not only can you catch us on everywhere that you're listening to your podcast, but you can also find us on
Let's go.
YouTube.
We're moving up in the world.
Win.Pod.Repeat, same place. We just figured since not enough, we need more people to follow us and really engage. So we're just gonna put ourselves everywhere. Eventually, when we start getting money,
Well, I
billboards,
mean, once they
commercials.
see our beautiful faces, that'll get us a bunch of followers. So, yeah,
That's it. That's it. And they see that we're eligible bachelors living in our one-bedroom apartments.
exactly.
Just I'm just letting
Get all
everybody
the women.
know. Any single Red Sox fans out there, shoot me a DM on Win.Pod.Repeat Twitter. We'll know it's for
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
We'll know
sure.
it's for
Okay.
me. It's fine. But we'll talk about my dating life later.
You're kind of
More
burying the lead here.
important, we actually that's I like to leave people hanging for more. I also don't have an attention span. But as we're recording this Tuesday, January 25th, for anyone that doesn't know, today Hall of Fame announcement, and much anticipated for Boston Red Sox fans. First year on the ballot, David Ortiz into the Hall of Fame. Into the Hall of Fame. He is just the fifth Boston Red Sox player to make it in on the first ballot, joining Pedro Martinez, Wade Boggs, Carl Yastrzemski, and Ted
Oh,
Williams.
yeah.
That's a pretty good list.
Great list.
Pretty good. That's a great list. So what do you think, Spencer?
I think the voters got it right. It's about damn time that they got something right. They've been keeping one of the greatest hitters of all time out of the Hall of Fame for 10 years, and they've been keeping one of the two, actually, including Schilling, of the greatest pitchers of all time out of the Hall of Fame. So they finally put a good player in. They kept Alex Rodriguez out. So that's like almost equally good news is that Alex Rodriguez didn't get in. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, very exciting day for Red Sox fans. Watch the video of David Ortiz getting the call. It was very exciting. He was very hyped. Him and
Yeah,
Pedro.
dude. Yeah, which I love, dude. I love the Poppy Pedro dynamic. Honestly, the fact that that broadcast networks haven't figured out to get both of those two on TV at the same time at all times. Like, where's Fox? Like, why is Fox not calling Pedro Martinez and saying, "Hey, I know you're doing TBS, and I know that you're doing MLB Network, but we'll give you more money and just have it be you and David Ortiz talking." I'm in. I,
Yeah,
I feel like there'd be a lot of non-Red Sox fans that would hate it. But come on, would that not be
I
a lot
mean,
of
it
fun?
kind of sounds like the new Sunday Night Baseball broadcast that just has Michael Kay and Alex Rodriguez. I mean, it's just as
Yeah.
homer as
See,
that is. So why not?
we
Yeah,
counter. Yeah, ESPN goes Yankees and Fox goes
yeah.
Red Sox. I
Why
think
not?
that's fair.
It's the only two teams people care about
So,
anyway.
but yeah, I mean, you're you're not wrong. But listen, I figure we'll get into more of the Hall of Fame controversy later. We are a Red Sox podcast, so we
We
should
sure are.
really just reflect on David
Yeah,
Ortiz. So just again, 77.9% of the ballot, which honestly, it's tough because obviously that's a majority, but I mean, he was sitting at 83%, and we knew it was going to drop because everyone once all the private ballots come in from all the cowards, you you
yeah.
see it
You're not
usually
wrong.
drop. Hence, you saw Clemens and Bonds drop significantly. But it's good, like you said. They got it right. It's just again, to me, it's very interesting because there's the whole debate about people. I mean, one of my coworkers today was like, designated hitters shouldn't get in. If you can only play in 15 of 30 teams, you shouldn't. But if you're elite at your position, and arguably, David Ortiz is the greatest designated hitter, just designated hitter
Oh,
ever.
definitely, definitely.
There's nobody else that's just done that position. And yeah, you're on the field, but to be a full-time designated hitter, you have to be such an elite bat that they have to have you in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, and then one of the things that Jay Jaffe talked about in his profile of Ortiz was like all the research into the designated hitter effect and how that actually is a negative for like the majority of players. And so like, for most players, they need to be like in the field and just sitting on the bench and then hitting is actually really hard for most players, and not anyone can just master that. And he was, besides that, he was one of the best hitters of his generation. So whether he plays a position or not, like you have to put someone that good at hitting in the Hall of Fame. You just have to. So
Yeah. And again, like we've said over and over again, it's a baseball museum. It's supposed to recognize the great. And you know what? Like, here's the thing. Without David Ortiz, you could argue the Red Sox do not go and beat the Yankees and win the World Series in
definitely
2004.
not.
They potentially don't go, they don't win game 1 of the ALCS in 2013 against the Tigers and go win that series and go win the World
They
Series.
might
They maybe don't win
still
that World
not have a
Series.
World Series if it wasn't for David Ortiz. You could make
Yeah,
a really fucking
just
good case
like
that they wouldn't. So
yeah, like it changed the course because again, we always talk about the Dave Roberts steal, right? Dave Roberts steal saves the game, but it's David Ortiz that walked it off in game 4 of the
sure did.
ALCS, and it's David Ortiz that went and won it in game 5. Uh, we talk about, a Mount Rushmore of Boston Red Sox, and he has to be on it. He has to be.
100%. Yeah.
So, I mean, all right. So, I know I asked you this question earlier in the week. I have my list of top 5 David Ortiz moments. I don't know if you have yours.
This is the list
Didn't
I forgot
do his
about.
homework. This is the list. I thought about texting you, and then I was like, nah, it's fine. He's probably got it. But it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
It's fine. I got 3.
You know what?
I came up with 3 like on the spot, and I was like, I'll come up with the other 2 later. And then I was like, I don't have 2 more. Like, I feel like my problem is most of the like great Ortiz moments happened before I was watching like all the 2004 moments and all that shit. So like if you have pre 2008 moments, then that's good because then I can finish it off with the later moments.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, I'll get because like you said, like I was very lucky to like grow up in it.
Sure.
I was 8 in New England in 2004 when they win. I remember my parents let me stay up late to watch the games because it was that big of a deal. So yeah, I'm gonna give you my top 5, my definitive. This is Sam Anthony's. So number 5 on my list is just the 2013 World Series. You can't pencil down in a moment because he was 11 for 16. He hit 688 with an OPS of almost 2,000. I mean, I remember that because that Halloween I went as the Boston Red Sox player for Halloween, and I got a fake beard because they all had the beards. And they won the World Series on Halloween. I'm pretty sure, or 31st. So I just remember like I'm having this Halloween party. I believe it was Halloween. It was right around there because I remember like I was riding the high. It was unbelievable. Number 4, and again this was before your fandom, but the summer of 2006 when David Ortiz is going toe-to-toe in the home run race with Alex Rodriguez. And just every day, home run, home run, home run. So my number 4 moment is when he hit number 51. Why? Because he passes Ted Williams, sets the Red Sox record, and he does it against the Twins.
Nice.
The team that didn't believe in him, had no faith, and you just love it. You just love it. Because, like... and I Twins fans can't even be sad because they have too much to be sad about. It's just like a long list of disappointments.
Yeah, that's not even close to the top.
No, but it's all right. Number 3, the Grand Slam in Game 1 of the 2013 LCS, the bullpen cop. The bullpen cop. Oh, it was so good. Again, I think that was my favorite Red Sox World Series. Just because like 2004, I was too young to really like appreciate the greatness and the suffering because like I was 8, but 2013, it was like the bombing had happened, and I mean I remember that day vividly, and just the way that like that team went, and we'll go more into that. That's my number 1 moment. We're gonna tease that because number 2 is the walk off in Game 4 in 2004. David Ortiz, that game. Oh my gosh! I mean, at least once a year. I go rewatch the Boston Red Sox 30 for 30, where they break it down, and every time it'll get me going, and that so good. It's so good. And that's just like it still gives you like goosebumps. I mean, it's just like that's why you're in
Yeah.
sports, because you can't make that shit up. But my number one is, of course, this is our fucking city. Great. I mean, just like reading about it, where like David Ortiz like was like, I didn't even realize like what I said. I just like fucking blacked out, and everyone's like, oh my god, you just swore like in front of
Yeah.
everybody. But like it was just and it was just very like
Yeah.
Boston,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
especially
Yeah.
after like everything that happened. Oh, and like for me, like I mean, Ortiz was already like the greatest forever of
Mhm.
all time, but like that like cemented it. Like he could have said that and just retired, and I would have been like, that's it. I like this is the greatest moment of
Yeah.
my life. But the fact that was like that happened, and then they went and they the team they won it with. I mean, oh, that's so good. So that's it. Those are my top five. And I'm gonna go and rewatch the "This Is Our Fucking City" speech after this
Nice.
podcast.
Yeah. That speech, I didn't even think of that. Like, that's a really good number one. Um, I would put the ALCS Grand Slam number one. That was like, that's
Yep.
still my favorite moment, like in watching sports ever.
Oh yeah.
Just the ridiculous like improbability of it, like just the call from Joe Buck saying that he never homered off of Benoit, and then it was like you just call it like and then earlier that day, you'll like this part. The Patriots had basically their own walk off because I remember like both teams had fucking incredible games and incredible comebacks. Brady hit Kembrell Tompkins in the end zone. It was great. It beat the Saints. I'm sure you love that. Patriots fan that you are.
Didn't like that.
And
Rip Sean Payton, by the
oh
way.
yeah, true. But yeah, and then it was like, how are the Red Sox going to top that? And then Ortiz fucking did. So that's number one. Number two, I have his 500th home run in Tampa.
Yep.
Don
That's a good
Orsillo's
one.
call of
Yep.
that is pretty great. And number three, because I only had three, is
There we go.
His last game in October. His like farewell when
Yep.
he was on the mound, like waving goodbye and stuff like that. I remember being super sad because I think we watched that together. That was tough.
Well, yeah, because we were in Cleveland like just a couple days before
Yeah.
that, watching
We
them
were
get
feeling really
their
good,
ass
and
beat.
then we were
But
feeling really bad.
yeah, but
It was
like
so
that, I
great.
mean, that I'll tell you, like as much as like, oh yeah, because like you said, like it was like you get to go watch David Ortiz one last time, and you got to go see him in a playoff game, and yeah, the result wasn't great, but like you said, it's like appreciating
Yeah.
greatness. Yeah, I think about that, with the whole Tom Brady stuff going on right now. Is like whether you hate or love Tom Brady, like when you're watching it and you're sitting there going, what could be the end or whatever they're speculating. I do like
It's just
I
getting
got
me
to
a
see
little
Brady in
nervous lately.
person once.
Not
I
gonna
know,
lie,
man.
I
Like
saw Schefter's report over the weekend, and I was like, oh, he'll
yeah,
retire if he wins the Super Bowl. So like, that's fine. I'll be happy either way. They'll have won the Super
yeah,
Bowl, and like, it's fine. And then they lost, and I was like,
yeah.
okay, so it's not a big deal. And then like today, he came out and he was like, yeah, I'm thinking about it, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it really sounds like it's coming down to like the family
Yeah.
stuff.
Which is, I was gonna be like, fucking
Which like I guess
retire.
like yeah, like you said like 5 years ago, like one more
Yeah,
year. Like I feel like that happens every offseason. He's like, one
definitely.
more. It's fine. Like I signed a contract. Like I have to play.
I think it's gonna be really hard for him
But yeah.
to walk away. But I feel
Oh,
like it's
dude.
getting easier.
Yeah.
Like he's never contemplated it really before. Um,
No.
and I feel like
It was
he's
just
just
the
kind
media
of gotten
contemplating
to
for
the
him.
point where it's like I can put up 5,000 passing yards and 40 touchdowns every year and get to the divisional round of the playoffs, and then who knows what happens. But
Yeah. I mean, like someone did have a good point. I was watching First Things First on Fox on Monday, and the point they were making was, how many guys like, no offense, but like look at Ben Roethlisberger the last 2 years where he was just
yeah,
broken, and it's like please just retire. It's like Tom Brady could retire, leading the league in passing yards, potentially winning the MVP. Like people will never know a bad Tom Brady
no,
year. Like the only bad year was when he tore his ACL and
yeah,
didn't play. uh, And just like to me, it's like that's pretty great. And to do it, to age 44,
Yeah,
yeah,
and he's got nothing
I
left
don't
to
know.
prove. He hasn't had anything to. I mean, especially after last year. Yeah, that
Yeah,
he really should have
mm-hmm.
just walked it off after last year. But like honestly,
Yeah.
it was fun to see him have one more just wild
Oh
fucking
yeah,
comeback, and I wish
yeah.
I could
And
have seen your face during that
I
comeback. That's just what I wish I could have seen. I just know you
you
were
know
so
what? It was like
nervous.
I'm feeling great. It was when Cam Akers fumbled the ball the second
Yeah,
time, and they were at the 20 with a minute left and I was like, all right, I went and I grabbed my scotch and I poured myself just a fat fucking glass
that's
and I was like, if
amazing.
Tom Brady wins this game, we're
Oh,
getting
I
drunk.
knew
We're
that
getting
you would get
absolutely shit
plastered if he
faced.
won that game. I was like,
Yep, and I would have been alone in my
yeah,
apartment. At least when I got drunk last year when they won, I was at like a party, so like it was like semi
yeah.
acceptable, except that I was belligerent.
No,
Uh,
really?
but yeah, you know what? It's fine. Delete all the text messages I sent anyone on
Yeah,
that night. That was like an all time. That
yeah.
was brutal. That was not good. But we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on. We're gonna keep talking about
Yeah,
David
back
Ortiz.
to baseball.
So I did give you another homework
Hmm.
assignment, which was your Boston Red Sox
Yeah,
Mount Rushmore, and you did achieve
I did.
that homework
Yeah,
assignment. So why don't you give us the Mount
Mount
Rushmore?
Rushmore is Yaz, Carlos Yastrzemski, Ted Williams, greatest hitter of all time, um,
Mm-hmm.
David Ortiz, and
Yep.
Pedro Martinez,
I
greatest
mean,
pitcher of all time.
I can't argue. I cannot argue
No.
with that list. Like I feel like I gave you that homework assignment and you like gave it back to me and I was like, yeah, I was like, there's really like I get like I know we were talking about Wade Boggs because he's the other first ballot Hall of Famer and he was
Hmm.
great, but I just think about like significance to each era and what they
Yeah,
meant, and as great as Boggs was, Pedro. First off, Pedro's run between him and Randy Johnson during that era of just absolute dominance, Roger Clemens in
hmm
there too. I mean, there was just some incredible
yeah,
pitching.
like pitching lines that you'll never see again. Like it just
No, I mean
yeah.
it's unbelievable.
Like maybe if Jacob DeGrom could make it through like 2 months, then he could put up similar numbers.
Yeah,
But he gets hurt after 2 months. So
he just well, yeah, because he throws 100 miles an hour every time. Like, just take a little off the ball,
yeah,
and maybe
just
you
a little
wouldn't hurt
bit.
yourself. Just a smidge. Like you can throw 98,
Yeah,
that's fine. But like when you're trying to like set the ball on fire every time you throw it, yeah, I don't know. But I love it. And like you said, like you talk about Pedro. Pedro was a like heart and soul of the Red Sox when they went and won in
yeah,
2004.
definitely.
He wasn't what he was,
No,
previously, but I mean, he pitched some great fucking like I love that you sent me that tweet from him. He's like, yeah, remember when I struck out 17
yeah,
Yankees? I'm
I
like,
love when
I
he's
love
just
it.
hyping
I
himself up.
love it.
Like it's like that meme where it's like no one. It's like Pedro Martinez. Hey, remember when I struck out 17?
Yeah, we're in the
Joe,
lockout.
we
He's just like,
do.
hey guys, I know you miss baseball.
We do remember that. Yeah,
I again, I think when I working at MLB Network, one of my favorite things was just like Pedro Martinez would just come over and he would just be like fired up about something. Like it was back in 19 when Craig Kimbrell blew up multiple times to cost the what was it, the Cubs a playoff spot.
when
Um,
was this?
what was the Cubs? Right, yeah, it was the Cubs. 2019.
Oh yeah,
Remember
when
when
he
he
was
like went
bad.
half the year without?
Yeah,
Yeah, and it was just so funny because like he just comes out and he's just like, yeah, man. He's like, doesn't have it anymore, man. He's like, watch him. He's like, he used to paint the corners. He doesn't paint the corners anymore. And I'm like, yeah, man. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what to
you
tell
should
you.
have been like, hey Pedro, remember when you
But
stopped paying the quarters?
no, never. I could never do it. I'd be like, oh,
No, he'd probably
you're so
kill you on the
cool.
spot.
That's, by the way, that's my only regret about no longer working at MLB Network is that they bring in the Hall of Famers every year to MLB Network, and I'm not going to be there for David
Oof,
Ortiz.
that's tough. But they also might
I know.
never bring him in because we
I'm getting.
might never have baseball this year.
I mean, that's that is in
Yeah.
fact fair. Um, brutal. But yeah, I mean, all right, I agree with your Mount Rushmore. My next question for you, I thought of this right before we started podcasting, but I figured this would be a good
Okay.
question. If you could give me one word to describe David Ortiz, what would it be?
Clutch.
See, all right, and that's a good word.
See,
That was the
and it's
first word I
funny that
had.
I say that because I just had a conversation with someone the other day saying that clutch isn't a thing, and that's like not a. I don't know. I guess it depends on your definition of clutch, whether it's a thing or not.
Yes.
Um, I've heard different people describe it, and my definition of it is like you're already really good and you just don't stop being really good when you get into those situations. Like
Yes.
that's what clutch is. It's not
Yes.
getting better in clutch situation. Like a clutch situation, that's a thing. Like, you know, that's a
Yep.
that's a you can't argue whether that's a thing or not. But a clutch player, that's what you can argue. And I think that that's not, something that's in your genes or something like that. It's just you keep your high level of play in the clutch moments.
Yep.
So
See, like this is what I think clutch is, because I agree with that, and I'm just gonna like to add on to that. Like I think about guys like David Ortiz, and I think about guys like Tom Brady, and I think what they do better than anyone else in their sport, in the game, is they prepare. Like I remember like reading David Ortiz's autobiography, and he basically said like during the playoffs, like he like couldn't sleep. He would stay up and just watch tape on
mhm.
pitchers. And during these big moments, he knew what pitch he was looking for. He's like, I'm just waiting for you to make a
Mm-hmm.
mistake. Like when he walked it off in game 5, he fouled off 6 pitches in that AB. He was just waiting for the
Yeah.
fastball. He was waiting for his pitch. And I think about Tom Brady. I mean, before the Super Bowl last year, his wife and his kids left the house. He was alone for 2 weeks, just locked in on the Super Bowl. And you could tell because they went out there and they smoked the shit out of the
Yeah.
Chiefs. Like, I think guys, I think they just want it more than anybody else, and they want to be in those moments. There's some people that don't want to be in those
That's
moments.
true.
Like I think a guy like Alex Rodriguez never wanted to be in those moments. He liked the pomp and circumstance. He liked people talking about him. But when you wanted him up there in that moment, he shied away from the big moment. Never stepped up.
That's fair.
I think that makes a difference, and I, as much as I hate to harp on Tom Brady, I've read a lot on Tom Brady. The reason that Bill Belichick liked him when he was at Michigan was he was like, the dude wins. Like, I don't care what you say about his makeup or his build or his physical, how he's built, looks like a dad. Like the dude wins. He wins
Yeah.
ball games. And, like I just think about a guy like Ortiz, and I think, when Pedro went and pitched him to the Red Sox, that was kind of it. He's like, listen, like this is a guy that wants to be here, that wants to put in the
Yeah.
work.
I think they both
And
just
so
have
yeah,
like,
and
that constant belief in themselves, and in their team that they're
yeah,
going to win. And you have to, end the game itself. Like you have to call it in order for
yes,
them to accept that it's
mm-hmm,
over.
yeah,
Otherwise they're going to continually think that they're going to win and do everything that they can to do that. And not
yeah.
everybody has that mindset. Like I think, someone like me has more of a logical mindset. And when I see that it's 27-3, I'm like, yeah, let's call it a day, guys. It's
Turn
just
on
not
the
our
TV.
day.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's I mean it's fun. And it's it's so interesting because I always think like sports in general. Yeah, I think sports are a really great analogy, but I do think at some point if you take it, obviously if you take it too literally, like you're gonna, drive yourself crazy because these are unique individuals, and these are individuals with gifts.
oh yeah,
David Ortiz is a guy that, as much as he's a clutch hitter and he worked really hard, he was also built to be a baseball player.
hundred
And
percent.
so, when everyone's sitting there telling you, like no offense, I'm 5'9" and like I have short little arms. Uh, I was never going to be an athlete,
So
and
what
that's
do you
fine.
mean? You just didn't
You
try
know,
hard enough.
I was it. I didn't
You
want
didn't
it enough.
practice enough.
That was it. Ball was not
Yep.
life. That was, fuck. I'm just making
Yep.
excuses. You're right. This is why I have a podcast that, nobody
Exactly.
listens to. It's fine.
We'll get there.
But okay. It's fine. It's fine. We will get there. So my next question to continue this discussion, this David Ortiz, homage.
Homage, what a word.
Does this change people's view of? Thank you. Does it change people's view of the designated hitter position? Because obviously that is a big discussion. Guys like Edgar Martinez, got in a little later because basically, people were kind of like, I'm the
Yeah.
designated hitter.
I think I think you have to find the guy that really takes to it well. I think the designated hitter effect, as I was saying earlier, is still definitely a thing, and for most players, they hit worse when they're the designated hitter. So um, you have to find a psychopath. Basically, is kind of what it takes. You have to find a JD Martinez who just watches a video all the time and all he cares about is hitting,
Yep.
or David Ortiz who's similar in the same way. Nelson Cruz comes to mind. But you can't just take any fat guy who can't play defense and put him at the DH and assume that he's going to hit bombs.
Pablo?
It doesn't work that way. I don't think. There's certain
No.
guys that handle it well. So I don't know if there's 30 of those guys, that there's one for every team that there's going to be enough supply for that demand. I guess we'll see. We're going to have hopefully 15 more chances to experiment with that next season if
Yeah.
they can figure that
So
out.
that'll be the interesting thing to me about the universal DH, which I mean it's gonna happen. That's like the least crazy thing about the lockout. We know that's gonna happen. But it's interesting because like obviously like the way the league's trending, with players like Shohei Ohtani, and obviously that's an anomaly, but there's more value in guys that can do a lot of things. So if you're a GM, there are going to be times where maybe you don't go and get a guy that's just a great hitter out of, fear of, limiting your lineup, limiting your bench, that there's going to be GMs that view the DH position as a, hey, we'll get a good bat in the lineup when we need to give a guy a day off, on defense.
Yeah.
So I think, and obviously, if you get a guy like an Ortiz, like that changes, I think, but like you said, there's few and far between guys. Like you said, JD is probably the guy that comes to mind, and Nelson Cruz. He's a DH now, but that's more because of his age rather than his ability.
Yeah, but like also
He
he's
can
still
hit
like
well,
maintained his ability to hit that well, as a DH, which is a credit to him.
Yeah.
But I think like you said, a lot of teams I think are still going to view it as an opportunity to keep guys fresh, rotate guys through. Have an extra place to put a bench bat, kind of thing, and I think it's going to be special cases where you have one guy that you give that role to.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's the same. Like when you talk about like Hall of Famers that get in as a designated hitter, it's the same thing as like being it's similar. I won't say it's the same. It's similar to being a reliever where, you're not going to get as many people to get into the Hall of Fame. You have to be really elite.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, David Ortiz hit over 500 home runs. Obviously, he's an elite hitter. You can't argue that. And it is funny to me that people that do argue that, but like you said, like there is the challenge in only hitting. You're going to come up. You have 3, potentially 4 opportunities every game to be productive for your team, and that's really it. And you have to make those count, and so that's what's wild about it, man. I don't know, like, so my next thought about the Red Sox is because I'm looking ahead. Yeah, we did come prepared. Thank you. I don't know how I came prepared. I was very busy at work, but so who's the next Boston Red Sox player that gets into the Hall of Fame?
Like Devers.
That's the thing. It's like, so the only person, because like a guy who's I think borderline, but I think ultimately won't get in just because of how the career ended is Pedroia.
He's not going to get in. I wish he would, but he's not.
Like I was looking at his numbers, and what kills me is that if he hadn't gotten injured, I think he would be a Hall of Famer. I think he would have produced enough numbers over time.
Oh yeah.
But I just like he's at 51.7 WAR. So I was looking. That's among second basemen. That's 19th all time, and now everyone above him is almost everyone above him. I will say is currently a Hall of Famer.
Not Jeff Kent.
So like not Jeff Kent. Ian Kinsler's above him. So if that tells you about
Yeah, I don't think Ian Kinsler's getting in any
Ian
either.
Kinsler was fine, but not a Hall of Famer. But yeah, Joe Gordon at 55.8 WAR. Billy Herman at 57.4. The next one you'll know, Jackie Robinson, 63.9 WAR, but he's in the Hall of Fame for a plethora of also other reasons.
Yeah.
Also, like let's look at WAR per because he had a shorter career. He averaged 7.3 WAR a season, compared to Pedroia, who averaged. I mean, Pedroia averaged 5.6 WAR per 162. Which let's see where that ranks. Hold on, we'll do some
quick math.
That puts him 15th. So, oh no, I'm not doing quick math. Don't worry. This is just in front of a spreadsheet. I wish I could do math that fast. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think the next Red Sox player to get in the Hall of Fame is probably, I would say Chris Sale. I think that's fair.
Well, I mean, there is one guy who's definitely getting in, but he's not going to be wearing a Red Sox hat, and that makes me sad.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Mookie Betts.
I don't know. That's just like, I saw it like because I was looking at the same thing. So like I went on Baseball Reference and like the first thing I was like, let's just look up like most WAR by Red Sox players all time, and like Mookie pops up on that list. And I'm like, oh my god, he was so good. He was so good. And like, what's crazy is that like he was such a key part in 2018, and I feel like by the time his career's done, it's like there's going to be like a whole generation of fans
don't even know he was
doesn't really even
player.
think of Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
That's just
it's tough. It's like people who don't remember
that is
Albert
tough.
Pujols as a Cardinal, you know?
Yeah. Oh my. Ooh, that's true. I think. Wow. Imagine that's crazy. Actually, honestly, like, cause that was fun. I love vintage Albert Pujols was, I mean, fucking awesome. So sad to those Cardinals fans that only know this era of like Albert Pujols being bad on the Angels and like they're still competitive but not the same. Not the same. But I digress. Okay, we've done enough Red Sox conversation. We actually got 30 whole minutes of just straight Red Sox.
It's impressive for this time of year.
So we'll wrap it up with hey man, we won't have a lot of news for a while. So this is the most Red Sox heavy podcast we're gonna get. We had to get it out, but it is important, and I feel like it is actually probably the greater discussion than Ortiz getting in. Is that Bonds and Clemens and Schilling did not get in, and I think you said it best to me, where it's like you're gonna tell me that the one of the greatest, if not the greatest hitter ever, is not in the museum dedicated to the greatest in all of baseball. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean it's
and
go ahead.
It's just like I'm sick of the like pick and choose, who we're gonna get mad about the steroids era, because it's just so fucking hypocritical. If we're gonna, I mean. Again, I'm a big Ortiz guy, and I know that his steroids case is a lot looser than these guys. But again, like, are you really gonna pick and choose that? And it just like the big difference between David Ortiz and Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds was that the media loved David Ortiz. David Ortiz was a fun guy. He was loved by the media. He was loved by Boston. Whereas, like, Barry Bonds never really had a great relationship with the media. Roger Clemens, he was a volatile personality. He was known for throwing at people if he was fucking pissed off at you.
That's a good point.
And, he bounced around. I mean, that's the other difference with Roger Clemens is, he ended up a lot of different places. Whereas, like, and to me, it just, like, it does feel like, the unbiased media, there's a bias.
Oh, absolutely there is.
It's bad.
I mean, Buster Olney, he was having a podcast about the Hall of Fame, and he was just saying how, during that time, everyone was kind of complicit in allowing the steroid era to happen. And that includes the writers who, had suspicions and had,
Yeah.
information being given to them about what was going on. And they ignored it because, the home run race was awesome and they needed to, the sport needed to recover from the 94-95 strike. And they chose not to pursue those stories and pursue that, kind of journalism and investigation. So for those people to be the ones that are now keeping these guys out is like you said, it's hypocritical and it's pretty bullshit. So it's, it's unfortunate, but it'll be interesting to see if these, era committees get these guys in. And I don't really know who's all on these committees. I know it's some players and historians and stuff like that. I don't know if that kind of committee is more likely to get these guys in or not, but
yeah. I'd like to think that, especially with, the era of steroids, to me, it feels like, with history, like when you get further away, you kind of, the controversy fades a little bit and you kind of just look at, I mean, I think about a dude like Pete Rose. If Pete Rose had just kept his mouth shut and maybe said sorry that I bet on my own team,
he apologized one time,
he'd be in the Hall of Fame. He'd be reinstated into baseball. He'd be in the Hall of Fame because he was an incredible. I mean, he was the greatest hitter.
If he wasn't a stubborn asshole, he would be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
it's not because he's a gambler. It's because he's a stubborn asshole.
His personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like that's literally it. Like he just can't. Like he has too much ego to say that he was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And it's the same thing with it's not the same. It's different. But like with Curt Schilling, if he just kept his fucking mouth shut for like a year, like he also probably would have been in the Hall of Fame.
Definitely.
But
the moral of the story is after you retire,
like,
shut the fuck up.
Not like for real. Like you know what? Listen, social media, stay off of it. Why?
You have
why
nothing
do you need,
to gain. You're already
why
famous.
Do you need to tweet about your thoughts? Yeah. Just like tweet pictures of like a puppy or something. I don't know. Like get a dog, like go on cool vacations. I don't know. Why do we have to? Yeah, I'm done. That's my rant. That's it. I'm over it. But I do think that eventually that they will get into the Hall of Fame. What sucks is that I feel like when you get in later, there's less people that are really going to appreciate it. I look at some of the guys that are getting in this Veterans Committee now, and it's exciting because there's guys where like the wrong has been righted. What makes me sad is the people that are dead by the time they get into the Hall of Fame, and you're just like you just I can't feel that bad because obviously like they got to go have a really great career, and look at a guy like Barry Bonds. Okay, he didn't get in the Hall of Fame. He's still the greatest home run hitter ever. He he instilled fear in every fucking pitcher that faced him. I mean, he got intentionally walked with the fucking bases loaded. To me, if I'm Barry Bonds, fuck the Hall of Fame. I don't need that. I've proved to anyone that gives a shit that I was the best fucking hitter there ever was.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who has either watched Barry Bonds or has looked at his stats knows how good he was. Like, we don't necessarily need him to be, have a plaque for us to know how good he was. And that's, what a lot of people have said throughout this process is, is the Hall of Fame something we really even need? But, at the end of the day, I think it's shown that a lot of people do care about the Hall of Fame, even if it's not super necessary. So it's not going away.
No. And it's interesting because it's definitely a double-edged sword because obviously having like debate like this is great for baseball. I mean, it's probably the only time where like if you're tuning into ESPN and if you're in the NFL or the NBA, like they're getting coverage all off season because people are way more invested in those sports. Baseball in the off season, not a lick of coverage. This is something that you're actually seeing in national media outlets, which is it's good for the sport of baseball, but it's also bad because it's promoting what's bad about the sport, which is that they're pretentious about who they let into their precious hall.
Well, the Hall of Fame definitely subscribes to the theory of any press is good press. So that's
absolutely
definitely their strategy.
I mean, they did a full announcement last year to announce that nobody got into the Hall of Fame, which was my favorite thing. Brian Kenny's in Cooperstown. They're teasing it. Who's going to get in? Who's not going to get in? And they're like, nobody's going to get in. And you're just like,
what the fuck was the point of this?
Fuck. I mean, the best part of that day was Kurt Schilling writing the letter saying, he didn't want to be considered anymore, which is, by the way, I love that, 58% of people were like, yeah, I'm still voting for you.
Yeah.
Whatever. Fuck it, man.
Honestly,
yeah. You got my vote.
I don't really give a shit, but if I hated Kurt Schilling, then I would vote for him just to spite him and be like, well, fuck you. Now I want you in.
Oh, yeah. Give your speech, asshole.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, it's interesting. I think about, this discussion comes up every year, obviously, with this. But, does it change? Like you said, it almost makes you not care about who gets into the Hall of Fame every year, because it's just kind of like there are guys that if there were guys that were like borderline that don't get in, and you're like, okay, I can see where there's the debate. Maybe I, viewed him in a different lens, but when the guy that's hit more home runs than anyone else in baseball history doesn't get into the Hall of Fame, you're just
it's a tough look.
I don't know. But I mean, just go on Twitter and see everyone losing their minds.
No, I don't want to do that.
But it does feel like collectively, it really. What's crazy is that it feels like it's a controversy with the writers, but with people that are really invested in baseball, the consensus really is that Barry Bonds should be a Hall of Famer.
It certainly seems that way.
I feel like that's. Yeah, I mean, I know that if you had asked me 5-10 years ago, before I really understood that, and you just kind of were like, well, Barry Bonds did steroids. And
because that gets kind of impressed upon you as a kid. I think for our people our age,
absolutely,
you get told that Barry Bonds cheated, and so you just kind of grow up with believing that. And I never saw Barry Bonds play. He retired in 2007.
No.
So that all I knew about him was that he hit bombs and he took steroids. Yeah.
Hit steroids.
So it took me a while to do my own research and kind of, find out more about the era and all. So
yeah. I mean, that's all I implore to anyone that listens to this podcast is, if you still don't believe Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame, do research on his career, do research on his steroid allegations. Because again, it's just something that, while many people assumed, was never explicitly proven, beyond the speculation, the reports, all that stuff. And to me, I don't know if you can, and like you said, when it was an entire era, how can you pick and choose which guys get in and which guys don't?
That's good advice in general for our listeners. Just do your own research and listen to us. Yeah.
And please, this is gonna be my one soapbox. Read actual sources, for the love of God. Don't just you know what I'm saying?
No,
don't, if I tell you something,
just listen to Joe Rogan. That's all you need.
There we go, Joe. Yep, that's where the official podcast of our good friend Will Camilleri. He only listens to Joe Rogan. He can tell you where to get immunized. That's where he. I'm just gonna drink bleach. Listen, that's gonna do it. But all right, we're gonna moving on. I'm gonna transition from the bleach comment to a lockout update, because I figure we should at least end with the fact that there was lockout news today and yesterday, 2 days in a row of lock. I mean, there was, so just to recap it for our listeners that maybe aren't following. They met for both sides, the MLBPA and MLB met for 2 hours on Monday. The union countered MLB's proposal from 2 weeks ago. And the one concession that was noted was that they're no longer seeking to tie free agency to player age, which was something that the PA wanted, because, they're obviously guys that are in arbitration in their 30s, because, they didn't get to start racking up that service time until later in their careers. So it, limits their payday, but obviously they couldn't do that. They met again today on Tuesday, and MLB did make a counter proposal of their own. They came right back. This one wasn't as in depth as their original proposal from 2 weeks ago, but just some of the highlights. They did agree to put together a bonus pool for players in their pre-arb years, and to give bonuses to players in the top 30 in WAR, which I think is great. I think, that's a good way. They're still deciding on how much money should be in the pool, and to know how far off they were. The Players Association proposed a pool of $105 million, whereas the MLB proposed a pool of $10
That
million.
sounds right.
Yeah, I was like, wow. I was like, progress, but like not progress.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing is that one of the negotiations also to raise the MLB minimum salary. I believe it was to $615,000. And that's just for, that's for 0 to 1 years of service time, and it's like 700,000 for 1 to 2 and upward and so on and so on. That's also still being decided upon. The current minimum, I believe, is $575,000. And yeah, the other thing that happened was that MLB dropped its proposed changes to the arbitration system, which was their, war-based system, just to have a basically, stats determine the value, which I can understand why players, wouldn't want that, because they have no chance to actually present their case as to why they should get more money. But yeah, that's kind of the recap.
Yeah, it seemed like the players, from what I said, I didn't read that much, but it seems like their two main things are trying to get to arbitration earlier and raise the CBT threshold. Like that's their two big things to try to increase their share of the revenue, piece of the pie, whatever.
Which is fair. That's what you want. That's what the debate's about.
I think both of those are reasonable, and are not that big of concessions for MLB to make. And I think I've heard a lot of opinions saying like the owners in this stage, they can afford to give up a little bit more than they have in the past, because they've had it so good lately that maybe this is the time for them to concede a little bit more in order to get a good deal done and satisfy the players and make them feel better, feel like they won something. I feel like at the end of the day, they're probably gonna have to pick one of those two things: either raise the CBT threshold or get to arbitration sooner. And I have a feeling that they're gonna end up scrapping the arbitration part and just hope to raise the CBT threshold, because that's been done before, and it's natural to raise that with inflation and stuff like that. But it's a little bit of progress.
Yeah, but again, we're in January, so it's one of those where it's like, call me when we're approaching March, then I'll start to be
better
worried.
Than nothing, that's for sure.
But I do want to say, before we wrap up, my absolute favorite little nugget of information that was in The Athletic today was that there was a group of owners, most notably the Colorado Rockies owner, top tier organization in Colorado. The owners were complaining of the challenges of affording to own a baseball team. Then don't own one. You can just sell it.
Don't be the fucking Rockies. Don't run your organization like idiots.
Hold on.
Like that's fuck that guy.
I was like, listen, you can sell your team. Many people want to go buy a sports team. Like, that's such a flashy purchase, look at fucking Steve Cohen out here throwing out his cash. Obviously, Colorado's not as flashy as the Mets, but God, come on.
When I have billions of dollars and I own a baseball team, it's hard for me.
Yeah, like, fuck you. Like, fuck you. Like, seriously, like, bro, we shop at fucking Aldi, bro. I love it. I buy bread for 69 cents.
Fucking love Aldi.
I don't want to hear it. I do love Aldi, but you know what I'd love? I'd love to not have to care about how much my groceries cost. And that's what the owners of these fucking baseball teams don't have to care about.
I could have $1 billion and I would still shop at Aldi.
And you know what? Man of the people. We respect that. All right? We respect that. They'd be like, "Oh my God, is that billionaire Spencer Wellington?" And you just like have your cart with your quarter in it.
Maybe
and be like,
I'll send my servant to Aldi
quarterback when I'm done. There you go. Wow. Yeah, you're really all right. So I feel like that defeats the purpose of really saving money if you're gonna pay someone to go get it. All right, that's fine. All right, cool. All right. Well, on that note, Spencer, I'm glad that one day you're gonna have servants to go do your Aldi shopping for you.
It's kind of my destiny. Like my last name is Wellington. Yeah. So
that's what they say. That is like the first impression that everyone at college had when you first fucking showed up. So, well, there we go. So that's good. All right. Well, Spencer's destiny is complete.
No, not yet.
David Ortiz is a Hall of Famer. And, well, destiny, sorry, it's the prophecy is yet to be fulfilled, but it will be. It will be fulfilled. Just remember me when you're a billionaire.
Yeah,
okay?
but you're getting
Just remember
everything
me.
you want. Remember you said that.
That's it. That's the plan. Oh, yeah. It's a prophecy. Like you said.
So we're both going to be fine.
Yeah, so we'll be good. All right, cool. We can have mansions next to each other.
Sounds great.
Then we can go over and podcast. But all right, we'll discuss our plans to go to Cooperstown eventually. And tune in whenever we podcast next, folks. And again, catch us on social media, catch us everywhere you listen to your podcast, catch us on YouTube now. We're going global.
Oh yeah.
That's it.
Get us out there. One more round of applause for David Ortiz.
There we go. That's it. All right, folks. We'll see you next week.